So just go in as guns ablazing, like, yeah,
tell the truth.
Yeah, tell the truth. Like, hey, you know how much money they're printing? Like the national debt's at 28 trillion. You know what that means for your family? Well, let me break it down for you.
Welcome everyone to Unsafe Space. I'm your host, Carter Laren, and today we are excited to be joined by the hosts of What's HAPAning, Nico and Shaine. Nico and Shaine host the What's HAPAning podcast, which is a show that gives you a unique slant on what's happening in the world today. You can follow Nico on Twitter at Petite Nicoco and Shaine at Shaine's Calf. We'll put links and the actual spelling below in the summary. And you can follow them also on YouTube at the What's HAPAning podcast on YouTube. We'll put a link to that below as well. Guys, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So I got to start by the very first thing. I learned today that not everyone knows what HAPA means. Educate us.
You can go ahead.
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So HAPA is basically just another term for half Asian. So for me, I'm half Korean and I guess half like British, I suppose, or half American. I don't know what it would be. But then what about you?
You don't know what happened?
Well, I know what I am, but for everyone else that's listening.
Half mutt.
Yeah, exactly.
And then my mom is Filipino Chinese, and then my dad is white, I guess.
Yeah,
American. So since we're both HAPAs, we thought that was kind of interesting. So people started calling us the HAPA supremacy couple. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of were like, okay, well, that's kind of like an interesting name for a podcast or something like that, because people were telling us to make a podcast. So that's kind of how that came about.
Yeah, that was back when we were just doing like the YouTube. We named ourselves HAPA Supremacy. And then when we made our podcast, that's when we named it What's HAPAning. So that's weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I like about it is that the supremacy part is usually only used by like people who want some sort of ethnic purity. So it's kind of cool to be like the supremacy of the mixed race. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because, I was just going to say that we had to change the name from HAPA supremacy to What's HAPAning because YouTube started banning channels that had the word supremacy in it. So that's the reason.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Of course they did. So we know that white people are evil. So you're at least half evil. But also I've noticed that Asians, by a variety of metrics, Asians are outperforming whites in America. So it's not clear whether Asians are also evil. Do you know which half of you is the oppressor and which is the oppressed?
I guess it depends on who you're talking to, I suppose.
It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Like whoever benefits from whatever situation, then that's who's oppressing who.
Exactly.
Do you oppress yourselves often?
Oh, all the time. I'm always like clashing myself, it's just like, what do I do here? And then I go, my Asian side is really oppressed right now. Then my white side is like, well, maybe I'm being oppressed because, all the...
not good at math.
Yeah, not good at math. So...
Right. Right. So I'm curious what I've been following you guys. I think I first found you through Nico on Twitter because we'll get into this later, but you're an epic troll on Twitter. And then I found you and Shaine and both of you and started to follow both of you. What inspired you to start a podcast and not just stay on Twitter shitposting all day long?
Well, kind of what she was alluding to before, how people were saying that we should make a podcast, or just at the beginning, it was just a YouTube channel. And then we kind of just decided, let's make a podcast because, we like kind of the political world and everything like that. And we find it interesting. So we just decided to make a podcast. And the HAPA part is just, I guess, identifying ourselves on who we are in terms of what we look like. And then we kind of let everything else kind of just people decide for themselves, what we're saying. We give our opinions on things, but then we kind of let people also decide what they want to decide on whatever topic we're talking about.
Yeah, and like a lot of the reason why we started doing a podcast rather than a YouTube channel was because we wanted to interview people, like interesting people. So we had on a lot of interesting guests like Scott Horton and Tim Pool and people like that. So,
yeah. And so how would you describe, are you guys like politically active? How would you describe your politics?
Well, I would say nowadays, probably in the past, like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years or so, I would say, I kind of been more of a libertarian leaning type of person, all thanks to Dave Smith and his podcast, Part of the Problem. That's really the red pill moment for me, was listening to his podcast. But then more recently, I've definitely been going more anarchist for sure, like just thinking about the state in general just being just a sham, and really just, especially now how everyone's with the whole Biden thing happening, and you can see that people just, they're crying their eyes out and they're all saying these things that are just kind of ridiculous. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Biden's president and Kamala Harris looks so beautiful and everything like that. They're basically worshiping the state. So I'm completely on the opposite end of that. And what about you?
I'm kind of similar. I've been going more anarchist lately just because of all the stuff that's happened in 2020 with the state enforcing lockdowns and just everything that's been going on. But before that, I also consider myself a libertarian leaning, although I don't know if I don't know, like there's certain people who'd say that I'm not libertarian enough, but I guess socially I'm more conservative, but then like politically I'm libertarian. Yeah.
Right. I mean, has your outlook changed? I mean, it sounds like your outlook's changed very recently. I mean, did it start changing just with this recent election, or did you start to change as you saw the kind of rise in social justice and the left? The left kind of unmasked themselves from an authoritarian perspective, I would say, in the last couple of years. Was that an impetus at all, or has that not really affected your thoughts?
No, that was a huge effect because everybody was just complaining about the dumbest stuff. And we're kind of just thinking, why are people complaining about this? And, talking about how America's obviously America's going to has problems in its history and everything like that. There's no denying that. But talking about from where we are now to what we were before in terms of just how far things have come for, I guess, social justice or whatever, it kind of just makes you go like, like, I don't understand why they're, so angry or whatever.
Yeah. And like the weird part for me has been seeing people who were rioting in the streets last year saying, like all cops are bastards and everything, now saying like, okay, we need to turn in people to the FBI because you were at the Trump rally in DC. So it's just kind of like, you're only against the state when it's not your side, or like,
it's democracy at work, basically. It's only when my side is in power, that's when democracy is awesome. But when my side's not in power, it's the end of the world and everyone's going to die.
Right. Well, and you mentioned this also with the, I'll just say the storming of the Capitol. I'm kind of using that ironically, but they certainly blew out of proportion what happened on the 6th. But you did see they treated it as if it was a sacrilege. Their sacred institution had been invaded, and it's okay to burn down Starbucks and Targets and smash other people's property and kill people in the streets if you're rioting over George Floyd. But how dare you enter the sacred cathedral of the state and cause any problems?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just and it's funny too because the whole hypocrisy thing, like, it's kind of just obvious to the point where it's like, don't really point it out anymore because at the end of the day, they really don't care. And when I mean they, I mean like the state in general, because obviously the Democrats now are going to love police and everything like that, when before police was like the worst thing ever because they wanted to defund the police. But now that Joe Biden's in, they're like, well, maybe the cops are good again. Who knows? But yeah, it's just it's an interesting kind of thing to think about when we're talking about the storming of the Capitol, quote unquote. And you're kind of just thinking this whole thing's just a joke, because people are playing dress up and, they're in the where all the Congress goes and where the speaker is at and everything like that. And the guy's sitting in the chair. And there was that one video, I don't know if you saw, where that's a one cop saying, hey, I just want to let you know, I don't know exactly what he said 100%, but he was basically saying the gist was, this is like the most sacred place that you're in right now. And everyone's like, oh, okay, well, whatever, and that's basically how I feel about that whole thing. It's kind of crazy because in all honesty, it would have been hilarious if they actually burned the place down, in my opinion, but that's just me.
Well, better that than Target, but that's that's an anarchist talking as well. If you keep listening to Dave Smith, though, you're doomed, both of you. You're doomed to become anarchists. I think.
So this is all his fault.
Yeah, and I've heard you quote Michael Malice, which is definitely you're on the path to the dark side. What was your thought about? I don't really know what you guys thought about Trump and the Trump movement specifically as it pertains to statism.
Well, it's interesting because the whole adage of I don't want to, please don't make me defend Trump. Like I felt like that was kind of a lot of people who hated Trump, but they're like, please don't make me defend him. And that's kind of how I felt about his whole presidency, was that, there were things that I didn't like about him, about, the whole, not ending any of the wars and kind of, all the trade wars and everything like that. It's kind of one war that not a lot of people really talk about in terms of the wars, is that his trade war with China, which is terrible in my opinion. But in terms of the whole movement, it's like he said in his farewell speech, basically was saying that, this is just the beginning. This movement's not going to go away anytime soon. And I think that's kind of what's going to happen during Biden's presidency and moving forward after that, is that this movement is going to be around for a long time. And I think that it wasn't about Trump in terms of him becoming president. It was the fact that it was either Trump or Hillary Clinton, and Trump beating Hillary Clinton was like one of his biggest accomplishments. Was, oh, thank goodness we didn't have that devil lady into the White House or whatever. I mean, but at the same time, it was like, well, now we have this Trump guy from New York who is basically like a 1970s type of Democrat, kind of a moderate guy or whatever. And, and if you look into what his policies were, not just what he was saying in the surface, a lot of it was that, he was pretty hawkish with Russia and China, especially, it's, of course, with the Russia thing, the whole Russia gate, and that whole kind of diluted the whole conversation. But you see some of the policies that he was trying to do or enacted, and very hawkish towards Russia, like I was saying. But in terms of also going back to the movement, I think that, and I'm sure you saw this too, where a lot of people they felt disappointed and they felt backstabbed when it came to his final days in office, where they felt like he was throwing them under the bus, and not pardoning the people that they were wanting him to pardon, like Assange and Snowden and Ulbricht. Mm-hmm. And, instead he pardons Lil Wayne, which I'm okay with, because that was a gun charge that probably shouldn't even happen in the first place, just having some possession of a firearm or whatever like that. But at the end of the day, that wasn't what they were looking for. They were looking for those main three that I had mentioned. And so you see it on social media. A lot of Trump supporters are just like, okay, well, screw this guy. I felt I was on the train, and now when I'm jumping off of it as quickly as possible. And some other people aren't like that, but some people are kind of emotional like that, and they feel that this was a terrible time, and they felt like his presidency could have been something great, but instead it's just another big disappointment and another, he just became the swamp when he said he was going to drain the swamp, but in reality, he probably drained maybe a cup full of it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, I don't think the movement of right-wing populism is going away, because I think Michael Malice said this, but Trump wasn't the river, he was the dam or something like that. Yeah. So this movement was coming whether Trump was going to be there or not, but he was just like the catalyst. So I feel like, a lot of people are saying well, now we're going to return to normalcy, and now we have decency back in the White House, or whatever they're saying now about Biden. But I don't think right-wing populism is going away anytime soon.
And that's a dangerous thing too, in terms of how they look at it, because people on the news now are saying, well, we got to do something about, re-educating these people and making them think differently than how they thought before. And it's kind of well, that's kind of creepy, because now you're trying to tell me, oh, well, I know you liked this one guy before, but we're going to have to do something about this. And it's some crazy times that we're going to be living in here in the next at least 4 years under Biden. And, if he does make it all that time or whatever, but who knows?
Yeah, it almost seems that Trump couldn't articulate this well, but I think he captured some sort of emotional disgust with the state establishment generally, right? That this was the drain the swamp kind of mentality or feeling, at least, that people had. And it's understandable that it was a big letdown, right? I mean, the least he could have done would be to pardon the 3 people you mentioned on his way out. It cost him nothing to do that, right? But he really wasn't actually about any of that. And I think now we're going to see, I think Malice is right. He was the dam. And interestingly enough, as you see the left, the left, they talk about unity. All their actions, however, are about disunity. I actually heard someone on NPR say the path to unity is through division. So I think their idea of unity is we're going to divide the populace and send the people that are the wrong thinkers to re-education camps or kill them or whatever their plan is, marginalize them somehow. Yeah. And then we'll have unity because, we'll all think the same way. There's not really a question there. It's just, it's going to be an interesting next 4 years. Do you think there's anyone that can actually be the person that Trump should have been to capture some of that angst and do something positive with it? Well,
kind of going first when you're talking about like Joe Biden and all that, it's funny that you talk about the re-education camps and the whole unity and by division or whatever like that. Like, that's kind of another strong argument for just we need to like secede or something like that. And I'm not saying that secede is like 100% guaranteed going to work or anything like that, but how can this guy, Joe Biden, basically govern like 300, 400 million people in America? I know he's saying, oh, I'll be your president. I'll be, everyone, even if you didn't vote for me, I'll be your president. It's like, come on, really? Like these Trump people aren't gonna just automatically be like, hey, Joe Biden, he did something for me. It's like, no, they're gonna hate you no matter what. And it's gonna be like that forever because there was that, what was like 74 million plus people who voted for Trump and then the 80 million that voted for Joe Biden. I mean, obviously people are going, I don't really believe the numbers, but at the end of the day, those are apparently the numbers. So you gotta kind of have to go with what they are. But it's just impossible, I think, for everyone to kind of just be like, yeah, let's unite and everything like that. And it's just, well, yeah, these are the same people who are talking about uniting. And, you should calm down and let's be friends, whatever. But
after they called them racist for 4 years.
Yeah, racist and that, deplorables and Russia gate and saying that, well, Trump only won because of Russia. And it's like, okay, well, whatever. Like, there's proof of that was complete crap or anything like that. But anyway, with the whole, I guess, moving forward with the Trump movement and who would be like someone who could capture that spirit, basically, is what you're asking, right?
Yeah. I mean, is there someone do you think that there's anyone that can capture that spirit and then bring about some sort of positive change, like actually drain some swamp?
That's a hard question. I think a lot of people who are on that Trump train or whatever, I think they're going to have to kind of, it's hard. I think it's really hard to kind of grasp on who that's going to be.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. But I guess to be fair, none of us could have imagined that it would be Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, that's true. When he came down the escalator, everyone's like, yeah, that guy's going to be president. The only person who really got that right was Ann Coulter from the beginning, because she was on Bill Maher saying, oh, I think the only one of the GOP nominees is going to be, is going to get the nomination and become president is Donald Trump. And everyone was like, oh, you're crazy, lady. Come on. And then, of course, she ended up being right. So, I don't know. I mean, the only name I can really come up with is like Thomas Massey, but I don't know if he has like that type of personality.
The charisma?
Yeah, the charisma to kind of like, because I like what he kind of does in terms of just, being in the state or whatever, kind of trying to do as much as he can to lower the state power and everything like that. But in terms of that charisma of getting all those people that were on the Trump train or anything like that, it's a big question mark, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Trump, I think one of the reasons that he was hated by the media, well, we'll use the word cathedral since you guys know what that refers to. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons that Trump was really hated by the cathedral I think was specifically because he represented an anti-cathedral sentiment, right? This is why, and I don't think you see that from other politicians. Very few politicians actually could successfully position themselves as I'm against the system generally. And Trump did position himself that way, and they played into it because they made sure to lie about him in the most obvious ways and treat him like crap for 4 years. So it was pretty clear by who they were hating, which side he was on. And I don't know if Massey can pull that off. I'm more of a secession. I'm kind of on your side. I think secession's a bad idea, but it's the best idea we have. So that's depressing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the weird part is like, it would be hard to separate people by location because it seems like it's the big cities vs everyone else. So
Yeah, I saw something kind of related to secession where like the whole Texas seceding from the Union is now becoming a thing again. And I just read recently, I didn't really look much into it, but I saw like a tweet where someone said that Wyoming is trying to consider also doing that as well. So it's like, wow, Wyoming's now considering seceding from the Union too. And it's just interesting that now that's becoming like a forefront issue for a lot of people, is that, yeah, kind of what I was saying before about how one guy now has the power to basically rule over every single person in America, when obviously not everybody voted for that guy, and not everybody even voted in the first place, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that guy didn't do the way I look at it, I don't know anything about the election cheating. I'm not going to say that there was, like, I'll just take the numbers at face value because I don't know the truth. But if I put myself in the position of someone who was a Trump voter and very excited about Trump, and then I see how Biden and his ilk responded to the allegations of questionable election integrity and fraud. If Biden felt like he had won legitimately and that there was no fraud, you would expect him to say, let's take our time and let's just really deeply investigate this, and let's take these really seriously, and we will take this, we'll go through all the steps. He would encourage everyone to, let's pause, let's really open this up. The media would say, well, let's really look, let's dig in, let's take this stuff seriously. And at the end, I'm confident that you'll see that Biden won. But they basically did the opposite, which was like, nothing to see here. So of course people don't trust it because they didn't act like trustworthy winners. They acted like people who really didn't want you to look under the hood at all to see how they won. And even if it was legitimate, it totally makes sense to me that you've got 74 million people or whatever the number is now who kind of feel like, I don't trust it. And I think that's more dangerous than just not having a president that you like in office, because the latter happens all the time. But usually we trust the election.
Yeah, it seems like now, like from the 2016 election to now a lot of people are not trusting in how the system is working. So it seems like we're on a downhill from here as far as like the whole trust in the democracy process. Because people can't even trust it.
Yeah,
so.
I think people, it's like when Trump was in office, like I kind of was saying before, where democracy is looked at as, we need to get rid of the electoral college and everything like that because, Trump didn't win the popular vote. So we got to make this the thing now. But now that Joe Biden won the electoral college, that whole issue got thrown out the window. And now, the electoral college is awesome again. So again, it's always the flip-flopping between the two major parties, Republican and Democrat. And it's so funny to see whenever like the face is basically just shown to everyone, like the mask is taken off and everyone goes, oh yeah. And that's one of the things too, about Trump's presidency and his legacy. That's another thing that he's going to be remembered, at least to me. I'm going to remember Donald Trump as the guy who kind of basically took the mask of the corporate press and basically was like, these guys are fake news, and they're not there for you. They're the enemy of the people, to again quote Michael Malice.
Right.
But again, it's like one of those things where the corporate press's approval ratings are just about as low as Congress was at a particular time, if not lower. And again, it also depends on what news network you're watching, because if you talk to someone who just watches CNN religiously, they're going to be spouting out CNN talking points. And if you talk to someone who just watches Fox News, again, they're spouting out their nonsense. So it's like kind of one of those, well, who do you trust? And it's kind of hard to trust anybody now at this point. And again, it's like, how is someone going to be able to govern all these people when they can't even trust the guy that's in there?
Now, I mean, I think the three of us share similar politics. At least I would put myself more firmly in anarcho-capitalism, but you'll get there. But you know, as someone who's an ANCAP, I look at this and I kind of think, well, one of the things I like about Trump is that he caused people to disrespect the presidency and have no respect for the federal government, which is about as much as respect as it deserves. And people stopped having respect for the media. So if he did anything really great, that's the best part of his legacy that I can think of, is that people came out on the other side of his presidency recognizing the corporate press for the sham that it is, and really realizing that, you know, the office of the presidency doesn't necessarily need to be respected. Those are just people. They're not gods.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, you go on, especially today during the inauguration, it's like you go on Facebook and everyone is just like, oh, this is amazing. I can't believe we like she was saying before, oh, we finally have this guy. He's so nice.
People are like, I'm crying now. I can't control myself.
Yeah. And it's like,
president.
It's like, I think even the people who loved Ron Paul in 08 and 12 when he was running, I'm sure if he had won, I'm sure all the Ron Pauls, I don't know, maybe they would be crying. I don't know, but I don't think they'd be like acting like, I know. I don't think they'd be acting like, oh my God, look at this. He's a God and now I'm going to worship him.
Yeah.
I would hope, and this is like for anyone, like especially for the Ron Paul supporters, I would hope if he did win, they would be like, well, now that you're president, everything you had promised, I'm going to hold you to it. I'm going to put your feet to the fire. If you screw with me and you I catch you in a lie, well, I'm going to call you out on it. And I think a lot of Ron Paul supporters would probably agree that, I would have called out on him if he did something I didn't like.
If he started a war or something.
Right, exactly.
Well, of course, because Ron Paul supporters generally are supporters of him, not because it's a cult of personality, but because they like the principles for which he stands. And so if he abandoned them when he got into office, I think they would be the first people to call him out. You know, if President Ron Paul said, hey, let's go bomb Syria, I think his base would turn on him immediately.
Yep.
So, you know, you brought up people crying in joy, which kind of leads to something else I want to talk about, because I think, Nico, I saw you today admit your tearful joy over Biden's presidency on Twitter. And you're an exceptional troll, but you don't just troll the right and you don't just troll the left. You also troll libertarians pretty well. And the one that one of the things that I noticed today, again, you did was your response to Biden's mask post, where you were saying like, oh, I wear my mask taking a shower and sleeping. That one went on forever. Can you talk about your trolling just for a minute and let people know what goes on? Because I think people go on and they don't understand that you're actually in agreement with them, but you're trolling.
I don't know. I started doing it because I'm like, well, this is not like, Twitter's kind of a cesspool of, negativity. So I just started being sarcastic with people. And at first I thought, because I've been doing this for like a year now, but I thought people would get it, but people just don't get it. Like, people don't have any sarcasm meter at all. Even if you say something really obvious, like I wear a mask in the shower, they're like, wow, look at this idiot. And I don't know why, but to me, it's easier to troll right-wingers than it is to troll left-wingers. They catch on faster and think that I'm making fun of them. But the right-wingers, I don't know why. I guess they just expect, leftists to be stupid, so they think that I'm serious.
Yeah.
Without even looking, like, if you took one look at my profile, you could tell that I'm not a leftist. But
you do have pronouns in your profile now, so.
Oh yeah, I had it for like a week. I took it out though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so a lot of people, I think, would see trolling as kind of an outlet for some form of nihilism. But knowing what I know about you, and I don't know you guys well, I mean, we haven't met except for today, but I know you're pregnant, by the way, congratulations. And I know that you struggled for a while. This is all public information. I know you struggled for a while to be able to conceive. And I assume that means you've got some optimism. You're bringing a boy into the world. You can't be a nihilist. You must have some optimism about the future. Where does that optimism stem from, and what kind of future are you imagining?
So since we're pregnant and we're finally pregnant, it took us a year of medical intervention to get pregnant. I could say I'm white-pilled because I can see like a good future for individuals, maybe not the world, the state of the world. But then when you think about it, it's like, is the state of the world ever going to be in a good place anyway? So you might as well focus on your own life.
Yeah.
And then like when you tied it to the trolling to nihilism thing, I guess I'd just go on Twitter to troll to just pass the time and wait till I have a kid, because I'm sure when I have the kid, I won't have time to do that anymore. So,
yeah, it does. I mean, it does accomplish, it does reveal that Twitter's a cesspool for anyone who forgets. They just have to watch some of your trolling, and it's like, oh, no wonder no one can have conversations about anything on Twitter. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So why even try? Just, that's why I don't argue with people. If you argue with people on Twitter, you're going to be miserable unless you really like arguing for some reason. I mean, maybe because I'm a woman, but I don't really like arguing with people. In real life, I'm not very confrontational at all. But yeah, it's so much easier to just joke with people and see if they get it.
Yeah, it's like the opposite. For me, I'm not as much of a tweeter as she is, but like in person, I can talk quite a lot. So,
are you guys worried about getting kicked off of Twitter? I mean, I don't see any overt reason why you would be, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, they'll ban you for anything really now, because I saw people getting banned for jokes. Just calling someone stupid can get you banned now. Yeah. Apparently that's ableism, so that can get you banned. So I'm trying to build on Minds right now, just because Parler. Parler was kind of sketchy just because of some of their terms of service anyway. But now their site is kind of broken. And then Gab, you don't have any app, so what's the point? Like, it doesn't even load. And yeah, so Minds is probably the best alternative that we have right now. But it seems like they're trying to go after Minds, so I don't know if that's even gonna work out for us.
Yep, they just want it to be Twitter, and that's it.
Yep,
that's all they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think one of the reasons Gab is slow, I'm not on all of them, but in a really lame way. Like, I don't really interact.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Gab, I think, is slow because they physically own their own servers. They built everything. So they couldn't be canceled. But what that means is they also can't scale very quickly. So when everyone runs over to Gab, I've had the same experience. I've tried to load it the last few days just to take a look at it, and just kind of sits there and times out. What do you say about the this is a fun libertarian argument. What do you say about the censorship on private platforms? Where do you stand on that? And what would you do if you were the god of the universe? What would you do with Twitter?
Oh man, that's I think
this is like the libertarian question, because you're like, well, no, it's a private company, can't.
Yeah, but I mean, that whole argument about it's a private company, they can do what they want. It's like, well, that's going to get you so far. I mean, we're kind of at that point where, oh yeah, they're a private company, they do what you want. It's like, okay, well then if they ban you, then I guess, hey, they're a private company and they do what they want.
Yeah, and let's not forget to mention that they're not really a private company if they're taking government subsidies, and they're basically working hand in hand with government to share our data back and forth and stuff.
Yeah, so. and also like when they were having all those congressional hearings, like Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and all that, basically saying, oh no, we're not doing any of that stuff, and then they're still doing it. So it's like, well, they lied basically, and so all of that is so dumb, but. It's a hard question, I think, for libertarians to answer, because like I don't even really know what to say about that, because
we don't really have a solution for that, but all we know is that it's something that we all have to think about. And I think the internet is still fairly new, so this is like new territory for everybody trying to figure out how to navigate this kind of thing, because you could say that Twitter can ban whoever they want. And so then people try to move to another platform, but then apparently they're like, like the example with Parler, people tried to move to Parler.
Yeah.
But then their servers got taken down. And then at what point are you saying like, well, now you have to build your own server and everything? So because,
well, it's another one of those
private server.
Yeah, that's another one of the things like, well, just make your own. Just make your own.
Just make your own server.
Yeah,
just make your own internet.
Yeah, like me, I'm gonna be able to make my own server. I'm half Asian. I can't figure this out. I'm stupid.
Well, I mean, and eventually it's going to be, I mean, have your own power plant, right? I mean,
right, yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure that you rely on. And, that I think something that trips a lot of libertarians and minarchist types up about this is this assumption that politics is divorced from culture and philosophy. And this idea that like, oh, if you have the right rules politically, society will function well. And I just think that's a false idea. Society doesn't function if the culture and philosophy underneath it is corrupt and horrible. Then it doesn't really matter what the rules are. You can have great rules, but if everyone wants to ban you because you're not using the right pronoun or you're whatever you're doing, no one wants to do business with you, then that's the society you live in. Society just kind of sucks. And that's a really hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, and it's also not just social media places. It's also, I've heard about like banks basically banning people from using their service. It's like,
yeah,
that's crazy. You can't hold your money there. So, and also I heard too, just recently, I think it was, I think her name's like Janet Yellen or something like that. She was talking some crap about cryptocurrency and how, cryptocurrency could be a harbor for,
terrorism.
Yeah. And it's just like, wow. Okay. So now are they really going to try and crack down on cryptocurrency? I was like, because a lot of people see that as an alternative to the fiat.
Of course they will.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, so wow. It's like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, look, I actually wanted to ask you guys about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but just as a preface, like that's one of the things. I was a cryptographer for over a decade. And so when cryptocurrency came out, oddly enough, I sort of embraced it, but not really, because I said, well, this is cool, but the government's never going to let this actually do what you want it to do. Like, I know we all have agorist fantasies about this being an alternate economic system, but guys with guns are going to shut this down eventually. And I think largely crypto's pretty regulated now, right? At least in the US. How do you guys feel about crypto?
Well, we're still kind of new, trying to figure everything out. We just basically got some lessons on it from one of our friends, but because when we started, we were like, we have no idea what we're doing, and people tried to explain it to us, and we're like, this still doesn't make any sense. But we finally got like a private wallet and everything, and started setting things up. So we're still learning about it, and I think that it's one of those skills that people should learn. I don't know if you know Julia from Brave the World.
The name rings a bell, but I don't know her now.
She has a YouTube channel. She kind of went off the grid though, recently, but she speaks about Bitcoin a lot, and I think she has a book on Bitcoin now.
Yeah, I believe so.
But she has a philosophy, and it's Bitcoin, babies, and homesteading. And I'm like, that's a good philosophy.
That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I waffle on Bitcoin. I think we just had Peter Schiff on recently. I don't know if you know who Peter Schiff is, but he's pretty. I love his economic outlook generally. Like, I love his analysis at a macro level, but he's pretty bearish on Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And I tend to think that in the long run, he's probably right, but the short run could be decades. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how that plays into what to do with crypto. I have Bitcoin. I'm a fan of Bitcoin, and I'm a fan of homesteading. So, and babies. So, all three good things. Let me ask you this question about libertarians. Let's pretend this isn't a loaded question. What the hell's wrong with libertarians?
Well, I guess it depends on who you're asking.
Start?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like we were talking about before about her trolling with libertarians and everything. It's like where their autism like goes off really badly, and then they feel like, well, I got to tell you everything about libertarianism and why you're wrong.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's one aspect of it. But also, I think that a lot of people find who aren't libertarians, or even libertarians, also find other libertarians annoying because of that same thing that I was just talking about, how they always have to tell you everything about why you're wrong and why, you shouldn't believe what you believe in and everything like that. And, like, I do think that the whole libertarianism philosophy is awesome and everything like that. But sometimes I think the
message.
Well, not just the message, but like the selling aspect of it, I think could definitely use some work. Let's go with that.
Especially with the LP, like, I feel like they don't really represent me at all.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad, because you're like, oh, you're a libertarian, so we actually have a Libertarian Party. But then I can't really relate to them at all, especially with their messaging anyway.
Yeah, and a lot of libertarians feel that way, and it's not. It shouldn't be like that, because obviously with the two major parties, the Democrat and Republican, even the Democrats who are in, they may not 100% feel, oh, well, I don't think everything in the Democrat Party is for me. They'll still be a Democrat because, I feel I'm a Democrat, so I should go there. But libertarians who are in the Libertarian Party, or they want to leave, they go, well, you don't represent me anymore, so I'm going to go away, and then I'm just going to not participate in this system anymore and just not vote ever again. Or even if they are in the Libertarian Party and don't vote, but just the fact that they're in the party and they're a registered member or anything like that.
Yeah, I go back and forth between that though, because I'm like, well, why would I want to participate in a system I don't believe in? But also we have a Libertarian Party. I don't know. And then, the whole thing with Dave Smith trying to take over the party with the Mises Caucus. So isn't this a Mises Caucus shirt?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, is it? Let me see. Wait, we can't see it all. Print guns. Nice. Print guns, not money.
Yep.
Here on that one. I didn't the Libertarian Party, is it Jo Jorgensen who was running? Didn't she this is one of the most disappointing things to me. And I've never been I'll say I've almost never been a fan of the party, because there's always some weirdness, but she embraced critical race theory stuff and started virtue signaling like a social justice warrior during the primary. And I was like, well, there doesn't seem to be actual principles behind the Libertarian Party. There seems to just be this kind of, we're for freedom, but we don't know what that means. So go. And it seems like that causes a lot of infighting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can just say that all of her tweets and Facebook posts were all done by staffers. So I don't even know if she even approved any of them, but I feel like if you're running for president, you should probably.
Well, and as far as I know, I don't even think her Twitter account is even active. I don't even know.
The last thing that she tweeted was about a bat, which is like.
Was it?
Yeah. And I'm just like, so the only thing people are going to remember you by is because you got bitten by a bat.
Yeah.
In 2020.
They should have just put Bat Lady on the ballot box. Trump, Biden, and Bat Lady. There you go.
Yeah. Do you think that Trump has destroyed the Republican Party? Do you think the Republican Party will reimagine itself and be more friendly to liberty-minded people after this?
Well, that's definitely a good question too. I think Trump definitely did some damage for sure. But also I think, especially these final days, it really kind of showed you exactly who they are. I mean, we kind of knew that anyway, but really these last few days of his presidency were like, wow. Because I heard about kind of going back with his whole pardoning thing, and how Mitch McConnell was a huge proponent of do not pardon Assange and Snowden, because we might come after you afterwards, and all this stuff, all these charges or whatever against you and all this impeachment stuff, we might actually go through it and actually put you in jail or something. So they're threatening him or something like that. So I don't know if that's 100% true, but I did see stuff like that kind of floating around. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I think the GOP definitely needs to do something, because, obviously Trump got the most votes of any GOP presidential nominee, but he's not the president anymore, so it doesn't even matter. And Joe Biden actually beat him in that category because now he's the president. So the GOP really needs to do something in terms of kind of what the Democrats had to do. And I guess you can kind of argue if they actually did any of that stuff in terms of looking in the mirror, wondering thinking about what they needed to do to fix their problems.
I was just going to say, with the Democratic Party, it seemed like when it came to the election, the like the more socialist type or progressives were willing to work with the more moderate liberals. So, but I don't know if that's true for the GOP because, neocons and then the right-wing populists probably won't go together at all.
Yeah, I mean, the neocons in the Republican Party, they definitely still have a huge hold in that party.
Which is weird because most people don't support that kind of policy.
Well, yeah, and that's another reason too of like representing the people. And it's like, well, because most of the people in America want all the wars to end, and yet the troops are still out there. They still have all those contractors over there, and yet, doesn't matter what you think. What I think is actually what's important because I'm actually in Congress, so what I say goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and as you've pointed out, it's a bit of a uniparty, right? I mean, we protest wars in the Middle East until Obama gets into office, and then we just ignore the fact that I think he sent something like 5 times as many drone strikes as Bush, which just no one talks about it. And like you said, Trump promises to end wars, and at least he didn't start any new hot wars, but which is an accomplishment. It's a mild one, but for a president in recent history, I guess it's an accomplishment. But yeah, it's weird because the Trump supporters aren't Republicans in the sense that I don't think they voted for him. No one voted for Trump because he was the Republican candidate. They voted for him because he was Trump. So I'm not sure where the Republican Party thinks that they are going to have support moving forward if they disavow the Trump supporters.
Yeah, because what if in 2024, when all this is up again, we have to figure out who's going to be the president again? It's like, who are they going to nominate? Mitt Romney again or something like that? Someone in that ilk? Like, come on, like that.
Some Lincoln Republican, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, so Liz Cheney is going to be the nominee. Ooh, great.
Wasn't there like some rumor about Trump starting the Patriot Party or something like that? I don't know if that's true, but that would be just crazy if that happened.
Well, if that does happen, the Libertarian Party has even a bigger climb. Because, I mean, how long has the party been around? Like 50, 60 years now? And what have they accomplished?
I don't know.
Very little in terms of like national level.
Gary Johnson got like 1% of the vote or something.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. You're going against Trump and Hillary.
Good
job.
That's not much of it.
I do think libertarian efforts would probably be better spent trying to take over one of the major parties rather than siphon votes away. But I don't know if that's even... Maybe that's not even plausible. I don't know. I'm not a political strategist. So
yeah, and I think with that type of strategy, like the GOP, and I guess it depends on where you feel you align if you're a libertarian, because I'm sure there's libertarians who feel like they're more Democrat or GOP or whatever. But if we are going to go with that GOP argument, I mean, the GOP is kind of this corrupt and huge monster of a party to the point where it's like, well, I would feel, at least for me personally, I would think, well, it'd probably be easier to go after that Libertarian Party because there's not as many people. And then if you try and get more people, be like, well, these two parties don't represent you. So maybe if you go to the Libertarian Party, it would just be, I don't know. It's kind of like one of those conundrums where you're like, so do I go after the Libertarian Party? It's a smaller party and then we can, make it larger, or do we go after the GOP party, which is already this massive thing or whatever?
I don't think it's possible just because of, first of all, libertarians can't even get more than 1% of the vote nationally. And then also with the Republican Party, like you said, it's too massive. There's too many locked doors, I guess.
We'll see
I was just going to say, I think it is possible on the local level to do that.
Yeah.
Take if you're a libertarian, just run as a Republican if that's popular in your area.
Well, yeah. And there were libertarians who did win local races. Yeah. So it's not like it's not impossible for that to work. But like kind of going with the national Libertarian Party, I guess, like, because everyone was talking about like let her speak and have her speak at the debates, whatever. And it's like, that just seemed like a huge like dead end. Like do you really think this massive commission, this debate commission, whatever they're called, they're going to let this third party lady come in and talk? Come on, we're not going to try and, because they really wanted Trump out of there. So I don't know why would they have this other person be like, well, this lady might take some of the votes away from Joe or whoever.
Well,
Right. Well, they didn't even let Tulsi Gabbard speak at the
yeah.
Right.
debate, right?
Yeah.
And she qualified.
Right. Yeah,
So-
exactly. And also with like the Gary Johnson thing, one of the main reasons they even brought him in the first place is because he was already he already had like that state experience, because I think he was like a governor or something like
Governor
that.
of New Mexico.
Yeah. So he kind of already had that experience, or the state. I don't know what the proper term is, but he was already in the state and all that stuff. Joe Jorgensen is just some teacher at a university, so she was kind of like an outsider, quote unquote. And I feel like what the Libertarian Party needs to do is they need to nominate someone that's really just going to like throw haymakers into, oh, the GOP is this. Yeah, well, guess what? The GOP is actually this. And they're, just take the grenade and throw it into the party and then, have an explosion. That'd be awesome. And the same with the Democrats. Well, the Democrats are like this, and I think they would need to do that instead of just trying to like toe the line and be nice and say, oh, well, we're the third option. And say, well, why would I vote for a third option? Like, what is that going to do?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something important, because I think the Libertarian Party generally, they seem to nominate people who have these milquetoast issues that no one cares. Like, I know what we'll do. We'll appeal to the people who want pot legalized because we want to legalize pot. And it's like, yeah, sure, libertarians don't believe in the war on drugs, and that's, I guess, kind of an important issue, but you're not going to win an election on that. Why don't you just point out the fact that the conservatives lie every single time they talk about reducing the size and power of government, and they do the exact opposite? And why don't you say, hey, these things that you're voting for that you want the Republicans to do, they're liars. They never actually do it. We'll do it. They don't seem to want to address any real issues. Instead, they seem to focus their attention on trying to get, I don't know, like separate them, like make themselves different on these issues that, aren't actually that important to most people. You're not going to win the presidency by saying, I want to legalize pot.
Well, also, I would say too, like, don't come in thinking that you're going to, this is like your race to lose. Like, you're going in to basically be like, there's pretty much no chance of me becoming the president in 2024 or 2028 or whatever. So just go in as guns a-blazing. Like, yeah, like
Tell the truth.
Yeah, tell the truth. Like, hey, you know how much money they're printing? Like, the national debt's at 28 trillion. You know what that means for your family? Well, let me break it down for you. And then you tell them that, like, oh, wow, this is kind of crazy. And obviously it's not going to be like some light bulb for every single person in America, but I'm sure there's going to be a great number of people that are like, you know what, that libertarian guy is making some sense.
Yeah, and I feel like if Jo Jorgensen wanted to make a difference in the 2020 election, she should have been a hard stance on being anti-lockdown.
Oh, yeah,
because
for sure.
Nobody, like even Donald Trump wasn't even that anti-lockdown. So.
Yeah, and kind of going with that, there was that Indiana governor race, and there was that libertarian candidate there for governor. It was, I think his name was Donald Rainwater. And that was like his number one issue was like, I am anti-lockdown. We need to stop these lockdowns. We need to have people just return to work and live life like it's normal or anything like that. And the Republican and Democrat, like the Democrat was like full lockdown, and the Republican was kind of like wishy-washy, like, yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the Libertarian was like, no lockdowns. And he actually did a pretty good job for a Libertarian. Like, I don't know how much, I think it was like maybe 15 or 20% of the vote. That's really good for a third-party candidate.
Yeah, they also missed an opportunity with Occupy Wall Street. I mean, obviously, I don't agree with a lot of the politics from Occupy Wall Street, but there were real issues about the oligarchy and the feds and the relationship between the Federal Reserve and banking and the finance industry. And the Libertarians could have seized on that energy and said, yes, let's talk about this. This is a real issue. Printing money is a tax that hurts the poorest people. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this actually is a little bit of an oligarchy or a kleptocracy or however you want to categorize it. Yeah. And instead, they let the Bernie Sanders people, like they let the socialists take that energy. I just doesn't give me a lot of confidence in the Libertarian Party's ability to do anything. I don't know.
Yeah, and they really need to do something because people thought that, oh, this is a good opportunity for the Libertarians in 2016. Trump and Hillary, oh man, this is our chance. We can maybe do something to throw some smoke into the air and throw some bombs into the state, whatever. not literally, I'm talking about, well, maybe literally, I don't know. But anyway, but again, that's how you got Trump, because of all this stuff that happened during that time. And then in 2020, it was the same thing. So you have Trump and Biden, like seriously, Trump and Biden, really. And then they nominate Joe Jorgensen, and it's like, I don't know, like what was their biggest media appearance, like on Dave Rubin or something like that. And even on that, it was kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of, ugh. So it was like, yeah, every single opportunity, they're just handed them. They're just handed opportunities, and they just go like HAPA tail, throw it away. I don't know what to do with this. Yeah. And it's like, if they keep doing that, you're just going to continuously be the laughing stock of all politics, even more so than the Green Party. So,
and the worst part is that then people who don't know about the whole drama with the Libertarian Party, then if they hear that you're somewhat libertarian in any way, then they're like, oh, so you're for that guy who doesn't know about Aleppo. Yeah,
you don't know Aleppo. You don't like did you vote for the lady who got bit by a bat, or that guy who stripped naked on the debate stage? It's like the list goes on with all these stupid things that libertarians are associated with, and it's like, why would a Republican who feels disassociated from the Republican Party, why would they vote Libertarian? And if they see that and they go, well, I want to be in this, I want to kind of do something and feel like I can go somewhere I do feel more related and more associated to my principles and my beliefs and everything like that, but I'm still going to vote Republican because at the end of the day, they just have a better chance of winning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and something that you've seen, I think, in the last 4 years is you brought this up before, but when the Democrats lost to Trump, I don't think they did actually any soul searching at all. They didn't do any, they knew the reasons, right? Oh, it's because of racist deplorables. Okay, done. So we solved that problem. Yeah. America's a bunch of white supremacists. That's why we lost. The end. But what they did do is they doubled down on the radical social justice ideology. Like, even though Biden himself isn't, I wouldn't say he's a social justice warrior. He's like a 90s Democrat kind of guy. I think he's largely a puppet. And Kamala Harris, I think she adopted a lot of the kind of radical leftist talking points during the campaign to appeal to the left. You had the Squad and the AOC people come in during Trump's presidency, really try and push a radical agenda. At first, kind of get met with pushback from the Democrats. But I think the Democratic Party caved, and I think those ideas are now, you saw AOC vote for Pelosi for Speaker of the House. I think that's an implicit endorsement of like, yes, we're going to be the future. You recognize that we're going to be the future. We're going to support you in Speaker of the House as Speaker of the House now, and we are taking over the Democratic Party. And I think that radical arm has really taken over the Democratic Party, and I think you see a lot of regular old 90s style Democrats. That's why you have like the walk away movement. That's why they vote for Trump. That's why they're voting not Democrat, because the Democrats have gone kind of crazy radical. That could be an opportunity for the Republicans or someone to reinvent themselves. There's not really a question there either, but thoughts?
I was just going to say, because even though the progressives are very loud and their ideas seem to be popular, especially with the woke capitalism thing, they just, BLM had a really good, their message got picked up by basically everyone.
Yeah, BLM's marketing is top notch, top notch marketing over there.
But then when you look at I don't know if anybody actually is actually super progressive, even though it seems like it's a popular thing. So they're doing like a really good job taking over the Democrats. So I don't know. What do you think?
For sure. Like the Pelosi's of the world in that party, they definitely feel threatened. And when I found out that like AOC did actually just vote for Pelosi as for Speaker of the House, whatever, I would have been like, well, that would have been hilarious if you just voted present. I was like, oh yeah, I'm AOC and I have, we're taking over the party. So instead of me voting for your old lady person or whatever, this reptile, I'm going to vote present. I think that would have been kind of funny, but whatever.
Well, I think in the past she was more opposed, but I think what's happened over the past several years is I think there's been a recognition from the dinosaurs like Pelosi who are going to age out. I think they've recognized that the AOC generation is that's where the party's going and they're going to take over. And I think there's been some sort of reconciliation there, which is why I think that vote happened. Not to put too much, I don't want to place too much value on AOC, but she is a charismatic representative of that ideology.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. And I think that is a good point about the recognition of the future of that party. And I think the GOP kind of has to kind of know where their future is going to be, because like, is the Trump populism, or like, is that still going to be a thing over there, or are they going to go more towards like the libertarian-ish type of mentality? Because, you know, if you have, because before it was like the Democrat and Republican, they were basically like the same thing, two sides of the same coin in a way. But now you do see like the Democrats kind of going more progressive and more of that, I guess, socialist type of realm. And then the Republicans are kind of seem like they're just kind of like staying put. They're kind of be like, well, we're like the Mitch McConnells and the Liz Cheneys of the world. They're kind of staying in that area. But, you know, there are those like the Rand Pauls and the Thomas Masseys that are in the Republican Party. But in terms of like those type of people, those are the only two that I can think of. And I guess Justin Amash too, but he's not there anymore, so you can't really count him anymore in that. But just those two now that I can think of, and I guess Mike Lee to an extent as well. But it's just those guys. And then everyone else is either, well, did you support Trump or not? And that's basically the whole thing, because, you know, if your whole party is surrounded by one guy, it's like, well, Trump's not there anymore. So either, you know, is it going to be like Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr.? Are they going to be the new messiah over there, or like what's going to happen? And you can't just like rely on the Bush family thing again, you know, like with the Republicans for who knows how long. Same with the Democrats and the Clintons and everything. I guess in Obama too, for also, which you can kind of say with Obama, because now Biden's in, so you can kind of say he's going to basically kind of continue a lot of the Obama stuff. But yeah, I think the GOP definitely needs to. They need to do something to do what they're changing the guard over there, or, you know, maybe the Libertarian Party will actually get their act together, which is a huge like. I
don't know. I wouldn't bet on it. They've got decades of evidence.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's like a huge, like, you know, you're
uphill
like
battle. Yeah,
uphill battle. Like it's like trying to climb Mount McKinley for the Libertarian Party. Meanwhile, the Republicans and Democrats only climbing like some like hill. You know. So
yeah. Well, you know, as Michael Malice, again, to quote him, I got to get him on the show now. To quote Michael Malice, I mean, you know, he's famously said, you know, conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit, right? And I think what you've seen in the last 4 years or so is, you know, I think the Democrats were always socialist and Marxist in a lot of their principles. Their principles were largely collectivist, but they paid lip service to American values and the Constitution and limited government and individual rights. They felt the need to hide their socialism, and they no longer feel that need. It is blatant and it's out there. And I think while they were hiding it, the Republicans, I think, have been pretty weak.
Yeah. The
entire time. They've just kind of been saying, yeah, let's go slower. We you know, we'll do a little less of that thing. And maybe if I want to be optimistic, maybe the Trump presidency has awoken a large percentage of the population that realizes, actually, during my entire lifetime, we've been heading the wrong direction, and maybe we need to turn around.
Well, yeah, I mean, with Trump's presidency, a lot of the conservatives were basically silent on, you know, the national debt and everything like that. They're kind of being like, you know, when Obama was president, they were crying about it every single day, but then they basically dipped their lips once Trump became president. Oh man, the debts went up more. What now? It's almost at $28 trillion. Congratulations. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting 4 years at least to see what's going to happen, because if the GOP doesn't get their act together to some extent, then it's pretty much game over for them. They're never going to have a president ever again. It's like the Whig Party. They're pretty much going to die, you know?
Well, and you can bet the Democrats are going to do two things if they can. One, they're going to legalize as many illegal immigrants as possible, because they believe that even though some immigrants definitely are more libertarian or Republican, the Democrats, I think with good reason, believe that the majority of them will vote for leftist policies and vote Democrat. So obviously, if it was if we had 13 million illegal immigrants who are all going to vote Libertarian, the Democrats would be building the wall faster than you can possibly imagine and exporting people. But, you know, they are pretty sure that will help their voting bloc. So they'll do that. And they'll probably try and bring DC or Puerto Rico or something into statehood, right? I think they've got a plan to permanently change. I mean, they've talked about changing demographics of the United States. And when they say demographics, what they really mean is voters, people that will vote the way we want. And so I'm not sure that the GOP, this might be it. This might be it. There might be no way in hell for them to win again.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying too, is that they really need to do something. I don't know what that something is, but they need to either like, I guess, really embrace the Trump populism, or maybe they need to branch off into different factions or something like that. I don't know what the correct answer is.
Yeah, I don't really know either, because I don't know. It seems like the Democrats really have a stronghold now. Yeah,
because also with that, the Democrats have been playing offense, and the Republicans are playing like prevent defense, like, you know, for a sports analogy.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're not even conserving anything. Like, what are they? They're just, you know, just being pushed back against a fence every time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And, you know, it's kind of sad to see that type of thing, because, like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, do you want a one party rule? Because that's kind of what's going to happen, unless like the socialist part, or like the socialist people in the Democrat Party, they do take over. And then those people that the socialists took over in that Democrat Party, the minority then become their own party. And then those are the two parties again. It's going to be the Socialist Party against the Democratic Republic Party, or whatever it's going to be called, you know. And then the Republican Party is just, now the Republican Party is the third party. Now the Libertarian Party is going to be the fourth party, you know. So now the Libertarian Party again is last, or at least, you know, no one cares about the Libertarian Party anymore. So,
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a risk that we become like a European country with two parties who are both some flavor of socialism. And, you know, I mean, those are our voting choices.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can kind of make the argument, I guess, that Republicans are kind of more, they're like, you know, like Democrats, with that whole joke about, well, the Democrats fight for a 31% tax rate and the Republicans vote for a 29% tax rate. Oh, wow, great. What a, you know, awesome. You know, so.
But the Republicans are happy to print money to make up the difference. So
right, exactly.
Oh, okay, that's better,
there you go. Yeah, it'll make up the cost. You know, it's like, well, we'll lower your tax rate to 5%, like your income tax, but we'll make your property tax go up to 3%. How's that sound? That sounds terrible.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that the left did really well, and I think it's why a lot of people feel blindsided by what they view as a sudden cultural shift, is, you know, the Democrats owned education for decades, not just at the university level, but all the way down to kindergarten. And, you know, when you've got statists indoctrinating people for 3 or 4 generations, I think where we are culturally is kind of inevitable. I mean, I don't know how you get out of this. Are you guys going to homeschool?
Yeah, we're definitely going to homeschool. And I just wanted to say, I don't understand conservatives who are like super defensive of public school. It's like, so you want the people who are teaching your kids all this, you know, leftist stuff. You really want to defend that? I don't get it. Like,
right.
It's like you're defending.
No, public school is the most evil thing that we've done. I think public school alone, if we didn't have public school, we might not be where we are. I mean, that alone might have solved our problems. Yeah,
just abolish the Department of Education. You have one of the problems is gone pretty much right away, I would think.
Well, I mean, you know, you can't, if people pay for the education that they get, then they're the customers and they have standards, and suddenly things work much differently than if what government teacher is going to tell your kid, the government actually doesn't have a right to be taxing to fund education? Like, I don't think that's ever going to come out of their mouth. Like, my job shouldn't exist. No one will say that, right? So you're getting a very biased perspective by default. And how could you not?
Yeah, and all the funding that's been going into education for how many years, and
It's
yet
not improving.
Yeah, it's either not improving or it's getting worse, and it's just a never-ending cycle unless something's done to it. Where, like I was saying, just abolish the whole thing and just try something different.
The good thing is, though, I think all the stuff that happened in 2020, a lot of people are considering homeschooling as a viable option, because I think before a lot of people thought that, there's this typical thing that you think of homeschool, like, oh, they won't get socialization. Like, just people who don't know anything about homeschool will say stuff like that. But
Right.
I think like after 2020, more people are considering it. So.
Yeah, well, Zoom doesn't provide a lot of socialization either, it turns out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I that is a silver lining. I'm glad you brought it up. And by the way, thank you for homeschooling your child. I think that's the if you want to resist homeschool, that's the thing to do.
Yep.
So
Step to the plan. Yep.
Yeah, I do think people are starting to wake up to it, though. I think you're right, and I think the other thing that's happening is on these Zoom classrooms, parents are seeing some of the crap that students are being taught, and they're realizing this sucks. Like they're not really learning much. And it turns out that Khan Academy is free, so they can learn math for free online if they're going to be online anyway. If they bother to read any studies about socialization, they find out that that's a myth. That being socialized into a prison system is not really healthy for your adulthood. So maybe that'll be the silver lining. Maybe everyone will pull their kids out of public school.
Yeah, another thing too is that the kids don't have to worry about possibly having to come in contact with violence or anything like that. So there is that too, like your safety. I know safety is kind of like a bad word nowadays, but in terms of having your kid in school, there's definitely that aspect of it as well that I think parents are also considering that. Oh, well, I don't have to worry about my kid getting punched in the face or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't know, you solved the school shooting problem.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, in my homeschool, we have firearms, so there will be school shooting, but it won't be that kind of school shooting.
Well, there you go.
It'll be school target practice. And you've also seen, as you pointed out, the standards have gotten so bad that if you look at what a high school graduate had to know 100 years ago and compare it to what a high school graduate has to know now, it's pretty pathetic. And my wife and I talk about this because she's from China. She grew up in Shenzhen, and she just looks at America and she thinks you guys are fucked. You guys, you're stupid, and the only thing you had going for you was freedom, and you're throwing that away. So why the hell would we even be here? There's no reason to care about America anymore. Our education is horrible. We're raising stupid generations, and we don't even have the freedom. We're building the social credit system here that China has. We're just doing it through Facebook and Google. So,
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point about all of that. The whole school system here is an absolute joke. And, it's another one of those things too, where, like I was saying, all the money that gets thrown to it, and yet there's really nothing to show for it. And like you were saying, the kids are getting stupider and everything like that.
That's why Corey DeAngelis.
I don't.
Oh, you should interview him actually. He's advocate for school choice.
Yeah.
I think who does he work with? Is it a couple of different institutions?
He's with the Cato Institute and also I believe the Reason Foundation as
Reason.
well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But he talks about if you're going to have public funding for students, why not give the funding to the students instead of to the schools so they can make a choice? And I think that's a really good step towards the right direction.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we have a kind of an irrational worship of public school teachers as well, which is it's such a noble thing. What a great person you are for being a teacher. And most teachers, I don't know. I'm not impressed by most public school teachers I've ever met. So, it might be nice to throw a little free market at them. See if they can see if they can earn their keep.
Yeah, throw some competition in there, because
That's right.
As far as I know, a lot of the teachers, they have like their pensions or something like that, like longevity or something like that, where they pretty much can't get fired or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but
Tenure.
Yeah, tenure. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's the purpose of teachers unions generally. It's not to help the students, it's to protect the teachers. And now, you know, we can bring this up really, you know, quickly because it's related to Biden. You know, one of the things Trump did that I liked was his executive order banning critical race theory education from government funded institutions. Yeah. Biden has already said, if he's not, he might have already done it by the time this show airs. He's getting rid of that executive order. I wouldn't be surprised if he mandated critical race theory. And they will roll it. His education, his nomination for education secretary or whatever that title is, that person rolled out critical race theory all across high schools in Connecticut. They're going to roll out indoctrination, and that goes right through the public schools, and the teacher unions will support it. They won't stand against it because it's exactly what they want to do anyway. And, you know, I don't know, we're supposed to be happy that they are kind of sort of sometimes teaching math and a little bit of reading. You can learn that on your own on the internet. I honestly believe that not going to school and sitting at home picking your nose is probably better.
Yeah, I don't know. Everything you just said was just a better argument for homeschooling, because why would you want your kid to learn critical race theory in school? Like, I feel like what does that have to do with the actual education part? I thought you're supposed to learn skills for life.
Yeah, like most of the people that they come out of school, you know, I know, like for me, I was definitely one of them where it's like, I don't know how to do my taxes. I didn't really learn this in school.
I don't know how to balance checkbook, all that stuff.
How to do that. I don't know about like a lot of the homeschool. I don't know, like a lot of the life skills that I should know. But I guess I know about, you know, geometry, and I know about, you know, like critical race theory. So there is that.
Yeah, I learned more from working at the age of 14 and up than I did from school.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No.
Yeah, school. I think one thing that people don't understand is the educational system has turned explicitly into activism. So even if you look at the missions for, I've looked at a lot of private schools recently, and even a lot of the private schools, and especially the public schools, their mission statements explicitly include building activists, like creating citizen activists. That's what they're trying to do. They're not trying to do, you know, what, Nico, you had this kind of, aren't you supposed to be learning life skills? Like, no, that's not the goal of education anymore. Or at least not the goal of our school system. It is to create activists. And I think they're doing a great job creating zombies, zombie activists for the cause. So.
Yeah, but it's like activists for what? Like, we need more public school funding. Ooh, wow, what an activist.
Well, they want activists for more, you know, policies that end up with government control, basically. That's what it seems like.
Environmentalism and climate change and all that stuff.
Well, not only that, but all the, you know, the race-based stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
All that stuff.
Yeah, and you know, the they want to decolonize, like, right? So a lot of this is tied to the critical theories, the critical race theory, the decolonization theories, all that kind of pseudo postmodern stuff. And they are very explicit about the goal being activism. The purpose of the education is to kind of decenter whiteness, and they throw, I mean, it's really insulting to non-white people, right? They throw like reason and logic are white things, right? So like we need to decenter them. I mean, there's books called Social Justice Math, and like they are actively attacking all of the kind of universal principles and rational thinking that basically have built civilization. So that's what they mean by activism.
Jeez.
Kind of seems like you're going backwards then, if we're going to say that those things are only born out of whiteness, and whatever that means.
You know, and that whole thing, like all this about like anti-whiteness or whatever, like that was another one of the reasons too that, like, you know, kind of going back with the Trump thing, that was another reason that Trump got so popular, was that, well, you know, I will speak for you and everything like that. Like all this continuous, like, looking down upon all, like white people.
I just wanted to say, I was watching I actually watched the inauguration, and in Biden's speech, he said that we need to defeat white supremacy and all that stuff. And I'm like,
he said that.
Yeah, he said that one of his things that he wants to do is defeat white supremacy. Sounds like a really good goal, right? How do you do?
Yeah, and then you have like the storming of the Capitol, going back to that. So what if they do it while you're working? Like, what if they actually decide that we're going to actually do an actual storming of the Capitol? Like, this isn't a joke this time. Like, what if they actually go in there while these people are working, and then they, disrupt everything over there? And because, well, you were saying you're trying to defeat me. I'm not a white supremacist. I know I'm a white guy, but I'm not a racist. Like, why are you calling me that? I'm not that. So it's almost like they're trying to egg them on, and then they're surprised that stuff like this happens. It's like, well, you're basically getting what's coming to you. Like, it's like blowback in a way,
Oh, they're definitely creating the problem. I mean, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm in my 40s, and when I was growing up, was there white supremacy? Sure, and it was universally hated. Yeah. And anyone who if there was a whiff of anyone being a white supremacist type of person, they would be ostracized and ridiculed and vilified. And everyone knows that's horrible. Like, that's not news. And now I think what's happening, especially with the lens through which they teach kids to view the world, is they basically tell you are a member, your identity is linked to your race, and you have two choices. There are these people over here who think the white race is evil and responsible for all ills in all of society and throughout all of time, and we need to decenter whiteness because whites are evil. And there's these crazy radicals over here that are white supremacists. And it's like, well, if you're a white kid and those are your two options, some of the kids are going to choose the white supremacist option because the other one's just self-hating. And no one is saying, hello, there's a third option, which is, traditional Enlightenment values, liberal values of individualism that you can, your identity isn't actually your race. That option's been removed from the table. So they're creating this problem.
Yeah, and it's also with the social media thing, when they ban all these so-called alt-right people or whatever, or I guess extremists or anything like that. And then they go to Parler and Gab and they go, well, look at those alt-right people over there. And Gab and Parler's like, well, yeah, because you ban them off of your platform. So, they're going there. Where else are they going to go?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's we were just banned from Twitter. We were just suspended. We have no idea why. No communication, nothing, no warnings. Jeez. Literally nothing. Just logged in, suspended. And we don't post weird QAnon stuff, right? We're not a strange account. And I think they are, they are going to force people to go into these echo chambers of, there's some weird people on Gab, right? There's some weird people on some of those platforms, because those were the first people to get kicked out of Twitter. And when you get kicked off of Twitter at the beginning, maybe you actually are kind of crazy. So now you've populated some of these other channels or these other platforms, and people are going to go over there because they have no place to go, and it's going to become an echo chamber. But whose fault is that, right? I mean,
yeah, and it wasn't even I think when this whole social media thing started, I'm pretty sure maybe a lot of people weren't thinking this was going to happen, because Twitter does have features called I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called the block button, or you can mute these people, or you can just unfollow them, or just scroll by and be like, okay, well, that was interesting. I saw that. I didn't want to see it anymore, so just scroll by it. But instead they go, well, we're just going to ban you off the platform completely. When they give you, they gave you these tools to be like, okay, well, I don't want this type of material on my feed, so I'll block this person, or I'll mute these words or phrases because I don't like it. I don't want to see it anymore. They gave you all those tools, but even Twitter is now basically saying, well, that's not enough. Now we are just going to take them off the platform entirely.
Well, it's because Twitter doesn't want you to see them anymore, right? It's not. They don't care what you want to see. They don't want you to see it.
I see. So even if I block the person or if I mute them, that's not enough.
Right. That's right. Wow. Well, thank you both for joining. Can you remind people where to find you and where to follow you?
Yeah. So like you were saying at the beginning there, at Shaine Scalf, that's pretty much me and all of the social medias that you can probably think of, Minds, Twitter, MeWe. Yeah, I think those are the
trying to expand to other platforms.
Yeah, I'm trying to expand.
I got MeWe, Minds.
Yeah, trying to expand those, and also for our podcast, you can go to YouTube.com and then to search What's Happening, or go to youtube.com/c/What's Happening. Or is
I think it's still HAPA.
Oh, HAPA Supremacy. That's right.
They wouldn't let us change the URL.
That's right.
But
But yeah, just go there, and you should just go all the links. They're usually in the description of the videos, and we have all the other stuff you can find us at for the podcast and everything like that. So. Yep,
and my Twitter account again is @PetiteNicoco. And that's, I guess just follow me on Twitter. That's my main platform. But I am on Minds too, because I'm trying to build over there. But maybe by the time you watch this Minds will be banned. So I don't know.
Minds will be dead. Yeah, probably. Well, thank you both again for joining. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, we have a deep content library that includes interviews with everyone from Mike Cernovich to Megan Murphy, so go check it out. If you'd like to see more, please consider supporting the show by visiting unsafespace.com/donate. You can find us on all the major social media platforms, at least for now, and you can find a community of like-minded individuals on our Unsafe Space chat on Telegram. See you there.
Warning. This is an unsafe space. Dangerous ideas have been detected. The content of this production has not been authorized by the Cathedral. Pay no attention to it. For your protection, the following co-conspirators have been unpersoned and marked for cancellation. Please do not take any investment advice from these individuals. Here's a fun fact from the Nobel Prize Committee. Mass graves are actually quite peaceful. If you think about it, no one should be allowed to express opinions. But don't. Think about it, I mean. That's not your job. Thinking has been scientifically proven to be less efficient than compliance. Did you know that wearing N+1 masks is safer than wearing N masks? Computer voice Curtis, never mind, that last line is fake news. Please disregard it and return to your safe space immediately. There will be cake.